There is a castle in Hokkaido on the market for $64,000. That is not a deposit. That is the price. The whole building, a Japanese-style castle in a former coal town called Akabira, for less than a parking space in central London. In Scotland, a 36,000 square foot estate costs roughly $344,000 a year. Not to buy, to keep standing. Its owner put it up for sale in 2021 and offered the comparison that has become well-worn among people who own these buildings. A castle is like a yacht. There is always something that needs doing, and you cannot manage it without a serious crew. 2 numbers, 2 countries, 2 entirely different buildings. It is not a fair comparison, and I am not making one. I am pointing at the gap between them. Because here's the thing almost nobody sees coming until they are already standing inside it. The annual cost of a castle barely moves with the purchase price. A cheap castle and an expensive castle need the same roof, the same masons, the same heating that a stone wall refuses to hold. What you pay to acquire it and what you pay to keep it are 2 unrelated numbers, and only one of them ever stops. And there is a single word that governs what you are permitted to do about any of it. It is not a word most buyers think about before they sign. Consent. We will come back to it. By the end of this, it will not mean what it means now. Start with the purchase, because it is the cheap part, and the cheapness is the warning. One castle market index puts the typical European castle at 1.7 million euros for around 750 square meters. That is a large number, and for what you get, it is also an absurdly small one. 750 square meters is a small office building. In most European capitals, 1.7 million euros buys an apartment with 3 bedrooms and a view of a courtyard. So why is the tower cheaper than the flat? The same index answers it. Buying derelict in the hope of doing the work yourself usually costs 5 to 10 times the purchase price. France. Today has put it more plainly. Many castles sit at bargain basement prices precisely because of sky-high renovation costs and the ongoing maintenance needed to keep the thing going. That inverts how you normally read a property listing. The price is not what the building is worth. The price is a discount for what it will cost you. The market has already done the arithmetic, and the low number on the listing is the market's estimate of how much pain is attached to it. Go back to Hokkaido, $64,000 for the castle. Roof tile replacement and parapet repairs, approximately $50,000. Annual property tax, roughly $7,600. So you buy a castle for $64,000, spend $50,000 in your first year keeping the water out of it, and then pay $7,500 every year afterwards for the privilege of continuing to own a building in a town whose population is falling. The castle costs $64,000. Owning the castle does not, and that Japanese example is the honest one because it is a 1991 structure. It is not protected. Nobody but you has any legal interest in what happens to it. Now run the same exercise in Britain, where the building is 400 years old and where somebody does. The first thing you discover is that you cannot even find out what is wrong with it. Not with a normal survey. An ordinary residential survey costs £1,000 to £2,000. A heritage survey, carried out by a surveyor accredited under the Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyors Building Conservation Scheme or by the Institute of Historic Building Conservation, costs £5,000 to £15,000. That gap is not a premium for a nicer letterhead. The heritage surveyor is hunting things the residential surveyor does not know to look for: roof failure, masonry decay, drainage problems, dry rot, and asbestos sitting inside 19th century restoration work that some previous owner commissioned and nobody wrote down. Skip it and you find those things anyway. You find them later and they cost more. Then come the standing costs, which do not stop. The Historic Houses Association surveys its 1,450 UK members at an average of £160,000 a year. Sudeley Castle's published benchmark is nearer £500,000. Burghley House spends around £100,000 a year on its roof alone, not on the building, on the roof, as a standing program every year indefinitely, because on a building that size, a roof is never finished. It is only currently repaired. And across those 1,450 members, there is £2 billion of repair work outstanding. That is roughly £1.4 million per property. Deferred, not cancelled. Deferred. Every one of those houses is carrying a bill it has decided not to pay yet, and Stone does not accept a payment plan. Nor do the estimates hold. Chateau du Theil's $2 million restoration plan reached nearly $4 million once foundation, wall, and roofing problems surfaced. That is not incompetence. Conservation guidebooks recommend a 10% contingency, and people who have actually done this work will tell you that 10% is fiction. 25 to 30% is the real figure on a rundown property, and even that assumes nothing behind the plaster surprises you. So the obvious response, the one any sensible owner reaches for, is to economize. Use modern materials. Replace the windows with something that actually seals. Take out the wall that makes the east wing unusable. Put in insulation. You are not permitted to. This is where consent stops being paperwork. In England, roughly 9,000 structures out of more than 370,000 on the National Heritage List carry Grade 1 status, about 2.5%. Castles sit overwhelmingly in that band. And under the Planning Listed Buildings and Conservation Areas Act of 1990, altering a listed building in a way that affects its character without consent is a criminal offense. Not a fine. Not a planning dispute. A criminal offense, carrying up to 2 years imprisonment and an unlimited fine. The listing covers the whole building, inside and out. It can extend to objects fixed to it and to the curtilage, the courtyards, the gardens, the coach house, the outbuildings, the paneling, the fireplaces, the staircase. You own all of it. You may touch none of it. And the same word that stops you fixing it is about to stop you earning from it. Which brings us to how anyone pays for this, because plainly some people do. The organizations representing Britain's historic houses have stopped pretending otherwise. They now openly encourage owners to diversify weddings, corporate events, holiday accommodation, filming, seasonal attractions, exclusive experiences. The polite framing is that this funds conservation and keeps privately owned estates open to the public. The blunt framing is that the house earns or the house comes down. The model that works looks like Château de Lassigny outside Paris. Its owners inherited a wedding business and expanded it hard, tripling annual bookings to roughly 80 weddings a year. Alongside that, the chateau has served as a filming location for more than 50 French productions. 80 weddings. Consider what that actually is. A castle wedding in 2026 runs somewhere between 2 and 5 times the American average of $30,000 to $40,000. So the top line is real. This is not a hobby. But look at the shape of it rather than the size. 80 weddings a year is not 80 days of work. It is 80 weekends of 100 strangers walking through a Grade 1 interior in heels, holding drinks. It is catering and parking and somebody's uncle leaning on a 400-year-old banister. And crucially, many castles can only offer a limited number of dates a year, because the venue is also somebody's home and because the building cannot physically take more, so the revenue is capped by the asset itself. In a way, a hotel's is not. A hotel adds a floor, you cannot add a floor, and then there is the gate. Converting a private castle into a venue requires permits, and it requires investment in the unglamorous things: lavatories, catering facilities, fire escapes, access. Operating as a business brings commercial taxes and additional insurance obligations on top of everything else. The lavatories are the whole problem, and it is worth sitting with that, because it is genuinely the hinge of the entire business. 80 weddings need plumbing. Plumbing means cutting into walls. Cutting into walls affects the character of a listed building, which requires consent, which is granted or not by a conservation officer whose entire professional purpose is to keep the building exactly as it is. You need the revenue to afford the building. You need to alter the building to earn the revenue. And you need permission to alter the building from someone under no obligation whatsoever to care whether you can afford it. That is not a business problem. That is the design of a trap. And none of it is the real liability. Here's the part almost nobody knows before they sign. The crime is inheritable. There is no time limit for enforcement action against unauthorized work to a listed building. None. A local authority can serve an enforcement notice decades after the work was done. And the liability follows the property, not the person who did it. Sit with the shape of that. Suppose a previous owner in 2005 fitted plastic windows without consent, cheap white frames in a 400-year-old opening. He did it, he enjoyed it, he sold the house, he died. 20 years later, you buy the castle and an enforcement notice arrives with your name on it, requiring you to reverse the work at your own expense. You did not do it. You did not know about it. There is no deadline that rescues you. The building carries the offense deep down, and you bought the building. And that is only the enforcement side. The listing itself was never something you agreed to either. There is no requirement to consult an owner before a building is listed. There is no right of appeal against the listing. And there is no compensation for the redevelopment value you have just lost. The state can decide without asking that the thing you own is now a thing you may not change. It does not have to pay you the difference. You cannot appeal the decision. You can only comply with it at your own cost indefinitely. And in case that reads as theoretical, a prosecution in Bath over unauthorized works to a Grade 1 building landed a £120,000 fine on a national estate agency and £70,000 on a contractor, plus court surcharges and roughly £60,000 of council costs between them. Not vandals. Professionals in one of the most heavily conserved cities in Britain who got it wrong. So when you sign, you are not buying a building. You are assuming, permanently and without limitation, responsibility for every decision every previous owner ever made about it. Whether it was recorded, whether it was legal, whether anybody has noticed yet. So who actually owns it? Not you. Not in any sense that survives contact with the word. You may not alter it, you may not demolish it, and you may not let it fall down either, because historic England holds legal powers to serve notices requiring owners to repair. The one option a normal asset always leaves open, the option to walk away and let it become somebody else's problem, is closed. You may not fix it your way, and you may not stop. And this is not a modern failure. It is not energy prices or tourism or inheritance tax or whatever the current explanation happens to be. The Carnarvon family's own accounts put Highclere's running cost in July 1933 at £909, 7 shillings and 8 pence a month. Annualized into modern money, roughly £85,000 a year. That is 93 years ago, on a building with a full staff and a working estate behind it, in the era people now imagine as the good years for these houses. It was already a hole that money went into. The problem was never the economy, the problem is the building. It was designed to outlast whoever paid for it. It is very good at that, and it has no interest in your plans. So here's what you bought. Not a castle, not a home, not an asset in any sense a bank would recognize. You bought a 400-year-old building that you must ask permission to touch, whose previous owner's mistakes are now your criminal liability, which you may not modify, may not neglect, may not demolish, and cannot afford, and which will still be standing, still needing a roof, long after your name has come off the deed and gone onto the list of people who tried. Consent. You never bought the castle. You bought the right to ask.